I'm joined by Dan Feferman, who joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for speaking to Republic TV. What we're witnessing right now are the statements that have come from the United States. Donald Trump had to leave G7 summit. He had to move back. After that, he said that ceasefire is not on the cards, but there's something bigger. How would you assess this?
It's clear that President Trump in the United States would like to see an end to this conflict. However, they want to see it in a way that actually ends the conflict. It's clear to much of the world, certainly to the United States, the G7, really to most of the Middle Eastern countries, that Iran is the engine of instability and of radicalism and of terrorism in the region. And such an Iran, such as a regime like this, who has been constantly provoking, stoking, and been behind much of the terrorism and conflict in the Middle East and much of the radicalization around the world in recent decades, cannot be allowed to have a nuclear program. And so Macron's statement that Trump very quickly rushed to correct said ceasefire, and President Trump correctly said, no, we're not talking about a ceasefire. He hinted that we need something that actually ends Iran's nuclear program, that ends their race to the most dangerous weapon in the world. The most dangerous regime in the world cannot have the most dangerous weapon in the world. Otherwise, we will be in conflict after conflict every time the Iranians are able to reconstruct. And just as they did in the last few decades, and we saw this come to the fore on October 7th, when Iranian proxies, unprovoked, whether it's Hamas in Gaza or then Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen and other Iranian proxies in Iraq and in Syria, backed an all-out attack on Israel, a good standing member of the international community, and such a regime was on the brink of achieving a nuclear weapon. And according to Prime Minister Netanyahu, there were even intelligence reports that it wanted to transfer some of those nuclear weapons to the Houthis, who have been firing unprovoked, nonstop on Israel since October 7th. And so what we can read into President Trump's statement is that if there is a deal in which Iran truly and verifiably gives up its nuclear program, then, of course, Israel will have achieved its goal, and this escalation can stop.
Well, absolutely. It remains to be seen how this pans out in the next few days. In fact, we have these visuals of United States rushing in bomber aircrafts closer to Europe is what we're learning. These are the visuals we have for you there on the screen. Massive buildup of American air assets in the Mediterranean. You can see that is the Morro Air Base in Spain. And the shortest distance between this air base to Iran is approximately 3,700 to 4,000 kilometers. And there is a direct flight path as well. A fighter jet traveling at a typical speed of 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers per hour could never cover this. In fact, but what we are learning is that United States has rushed in bomber aircraft closer to Europe. Let me once again bring in Dan. Dan, as we were discussing about the situation in US, now what we're learning is that US has moved a lot of fighter jets toward that region. How do you assess this?
I think this is a clear message from the United States that it doesn't wish to escalate, it doesn't wish to get involved, but it's signaling to Iran that Iran better get on board and come to the table in a way that verifiably and once and for all dismantles its nuclear program. The United States and President Trump understand that this is a very dangerous regime that not only speaks in very radical terminology, but has actively been the main engine and backer ideologically, financially, militarily, strategically of radicalism in the Middle East and beyond since the inception of the Islamic Republic in 1979. The United States has so far refrained from entering this conflict, but I think it is clear that if Israel, a much smaller military, a much smaller air force, has achieved complete aerial dominance over the skies of Iran, has taken out all of Iran's air defenses, and has done significant damage to Iran's military and to Iran's nuclear program. The entrance of the most powerful military in the world, the most powerful military to ever exist, frankly, which has munitions, specifically the bunker buster munitions that Israel does not have reportedly, then that will be a major escalation that Iran, which might already be on the verge of collapse, the regime, of course, might already be on the verge of collapse. If the United States enters, this is a whole different level, and the Iranian regime will not be able to stand on its feet. I think this is a signal to the Iranian regime that they better come to the table. Until now, every time the Iranians came to the table of negotiations, it was to buy time, and they never gave any actual meaningful concessions, giving up their nuclear program. The Americans mean business here, and they will take this escalation to a level that Israel cannot take it, and that the Iranians will not be able to bear.
Absolutely. Trump, as he has also stated that he has hinted at something bigger. No ceasefire between Israel and Iran yet, but something bigger. So it remains to be seen what it really is. I would request you to stay on with us. In fact, we have another breaking news coming in and these visuals coming in from Tehran. In fact, what we are learning is that students there are being relocated from Tehran. Indian students in Tehran have been moved out of the city for reason of safety through arrangements made by the Indian embassy in Iran. The External Affairs Ministry has in fact stated in a statement that other residents who are self-sufficient in terms of transport have also been advised to move out of the city in view of the developing situation. There are as many as 10,000 Indians in Iran. 6,000 of them are students. So this is very important for India to move them to a safer place for their own safety, and that is why we are getting these visuals of these Indian students being moved out to a safer location, and the arrangements have been made by the Indian embassy in Iran. In fact, some Indians have been facilitated to leave Iran through the border with Armenia, and just a while back, External Affairs Minister also spoke with the Armenian counterpart on this. Let me bring in Dan once more. Dan, we are getting these visuals of students in Iran being relocated to safer areas. So situation remains very tense there. We can see in the visuals as well. There is a little bit of chaos. People are moving to safer location. How would you assess this?
Yes, sure. Anytime, of course, there is military conflict, there's going to be chaos on the ground. Something that's worth noting here is that Israel is targeting very specifically and very precisely military and regime installations, and is giving warning to the people of Iran to clear the area, to evacuate so that they're not harmed, while at the same time Iran is specifically targeting Israeli civilian populations. If it wasn't for Israel's billions of dollars spent on air defenses and warning systems and shelters throughout the country, you would see many tens of thousands of Israelis, maybe even more, maybe 1 million Israelis killed by the Iranian strikes, because they are directly aimed at Israeli civilian populations. At the same time, Iran has invested the same billions of dollars on missiles and terror groups over the last 20 to 30 years, and not on protecting its own population, something we see entirely consistent across the Iran-led radical axis from Hamas to Hezbollah to the Houthis and others. They spend money on offensive weapons to terrorize civilian populations in the Middle East, while Israel spends that same money on defensive solutions, whether to neutralize the missile attacks or protect civilian populations. And it's stunning that maybe a similar amount of civilians have been killed in Iran as have been in Israel, which shows how much Israel is taking considerable care and caution to avoid harming Iranian civilians, while Iran is doing everything it can to try to target Israeli civilians.
Absolutely. And in the last 5 days, we have seen this escalation between Iran and Israel, with the US also sending the bomber fighter jets towards Europe. How do you think this entire situation will pan out in the next 1 week?
This is a major statement of pressure and of intention by the United States. The United States, of course, under President Trump especially, has made clear that they do not wish to get involved in any more Middle Eastern conflicts, but it is clear that the United States gave Iran, the regime, 60 days to come to the table and negotiate an end to its nuclear program in good faith. The Iranians dismissed it, avoided it, and did everything they could to drag it out. It is clear that the Iranians regime were not willing to part with their military nuclear program. Of course, their people are suffering under sanctions and under a crippling economy. And at the same time, they choose to pump all of their money into proxies and this foolish nucler program. Israel could not wait by anymore for an existential threat on it. And so this is a further statement of pressure by Washington that it will join the conflict if it has to in order to end Iran's nuclear program.
The entire situation pans out in the next 1 week. In fact, let us stay on with us, Dan. We have these visuals on the screen of the areas that have been attacked by Israel on Iran in the last 5 days. We have Tabriz there, explosion near Nuclear Research Center, Tehran. That is where the military base is. State broadcaster, remember, their building was attacked yesterday. Natanz, and this is the main nuclear enrichment facility which was attacked last week. Kermanshah, very important place in Iran, refueling plane at the area was also attacked by Israel in the last few days. These are the main areas, be it the nuclear facilities or military bases, nuclear research center, nuclear research site. Airport was hit by Israel as well. So Dan, Israel has attacked all of these prominent places there, be it their nuclear facilities, military base, etc. And Iran has also hit back at Israel at several places as well. Buildings were destroyed. There have been several deaths that have been reported so far. How would you assess this?
Yeah, you can see a very clear unrolling of a carefully prepared Israeli targeting package that starts with air defenses, missile installations, nuclear program, continues on to the entire leadership cadre of the Iranian military regime and intelligence regime, and then goes after symbolic sites, but also sites that are directly connected to Iran's ability to manage the war effort and the country. You're talking about airports, you're talking about seaports, you're talking about eventually we'll probably start seeing energy installations. There seems to be, from what we're seeing here, an escalation strategy that Israel clearly prepared. And the timing and the coordination of these attacks is something that was clearly prepared years in advance, likely, with a clear understanding of how Iran's government, regime, society, economy, infrastructure work. And so each strike is intended to cripple or destabilize or disable a part of Iran's ability to conduct itself and to wage this war, but it's also meant to be another part of the strategy to show that Israel can continue escalating and continue taking a more serious damage from the Iranian regime should it not seek some kind of end to this conflict, which ends verifiably Iran's nuclear military program.
Absolutely. So remains to be seen how it pans out in the next 1 week, but definitely attacks and counterattacks still happening, and it's been 5 days. Thank you, Dan, for giving us those details and speaking to Republic TV. Now we have a breaking news coming in. Footage, in fact, what we are getting is the footage from the center of Iran. Israeli Air Force aircraft targeted by